Magdalene's blog 40. The week went by rather slowly, giving me plenty of time to reconsider the course of action I was embarking on. The first thing I was sure of was that I wasn't doing this because I thought Simon the Magus was the Messiah, as the claims of some of his followers seemed to suggest. To believe it, my heart would surely have responded to him and his message, but it didn't. I was reminded rather of stories that both Sarita and Ariane had told, of magic practitioners and sorcerers from the East that used their powers in displays like these, but powers that I believed could control spirits, and therefore were just what I needed to help the many people possessed by such spirits. Ariane was working on the documents from Egypt, but we also talked about what Hecate Bell had said to us that night, especially her answer to my third question. Ariane thought that the goddess's meaning had to be that the one we awaited was on the earth already, for them as much to be here for us. Bell had thought otherwise. She said that Hecate was angry with my presumption to ask about things beyond my understanding. She was telling me to mind my own business, which is what the last phrase, "and you had better make the most of yours," literally meant. Certainly, I thought Hecate was telling me that I had better make the most of my opportunities that came my way. My mortal span was brief, and I would have to make my chances count if I could recognize them. More than that, I didn't understand. Bell was probably right. I was asking questions about what I didn't understand. She did more audiences with the rich women of Antioch this week than I could ever remember. Whether they came to seek her advice, or she called them to her, I don't know, but somehow her unavailability made me feel more isolated than usual. I ought to have consulted her before doing what I was planning, but I couldn't, whatever the reasons were. It was hard to see what the temple might gain by my seeking the powers I did, and this venture was not something I could share with even the best of my friends. I knew it was risky, but also the sort of thing I believed needed to be tried if greater gains were to be had. Yet to think of what I was about to dare sent little tremors through me. Bel herself had said that I should be looking for the control of power in the manner of Isis, so in fact I was following Bel's direction. But conversely, the rebel in me found it exciting to be attempting it in my own way. Torn by these many different thoughts, the week gradually slipped by, and I had not made great headway in my planning. But it had to be better to try to improve the lot of the many suffering people than just not to bother. I decided I would go and see what Johannes had learned. There was no harm in that, at least. Why was I making all this fuss with myself? I couldn't sleep that night, so I went up Adonis Tower. As assistant librarian, I was allowed to whenever I wanted, which was a privilege I loved to enjoy. Priestesses Teresa and the faithful Philippa greeted me, asking why I was up so early. It was between midnight and dawn. The growing moon had long since set, and Venus was in her changeover period between the morning and evening star. I couldn't sleep, and I'm doing the early run to market, I said, pulling my shawl tighter around my shoulders. The balmy warmth of summer nights had not yet quite arrived. I searched up into the sky, feeling for what the stars could tell me. Many familiar patterns were there, and Saturn was prominent in the western sky. Mars, too, was high above my head. I craned back my neck to take in its reddish hue. Shivering slightly, I looked up to Saturn, oldest of the great ones. "Father and Mother, hear my prayer," I whispered. I sat in silence with the priestesses, and they knew I was troubled by something, but did not press me for answers. Their presence was a comfort, though, and I hugged them each before going down to the sacred grove to do my oblations and purifications. Later, as I helped sort and pack the fresh-baked loaves, loading them high onto the patient donkey, my mood had considerably improved, sustained by one of my favourite herb flatbreads. It was still warm and exuded fumes of such pungency. No wonder that bread making was one of the favourite jobs within the temple. Nerissa was with me, and she was happy too to be going to the city market. She had a long-time lover who she hadn't seen for a while, but who had promised he would come and meet her there. It was a long but pleasant morning. Halfway through, we were joined by a few priestesses who were promoting a new range of our cosmetics by doing free coiffures for anyone who bought the products. They became such popular items that more of Aphrodite's priestesses were fetched to help. I had finished doing a young girl's hair, watched by her lovely mother who had bought it our most expensive new perfume. That was my last job. I had the rest of the day off. I made my way amongst the pigeons in the square, to where the wide spaced steps became a sloping way that led a winding course up past our sister temple. Turning right, there were more steps to another street that led to the Jewish quarter, where in the distance I could just see the top of the white painted synagogue outlined against the bluest of skies.